Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Commend Journey podcast. I'm your host, Michael Diamond, and we are back this week to have a compelling conversation with my guest today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let my guests introduce themselves, as is customary on the Commend Journey podcast, and give us an idea of what brought you here today.
Thank you for having me today. I'm Jake Strecker. I'm one of the co-owners and brothers of INA Alert. We are a family-owned company in central Kansas. We started our journey in 2011, so we've been around about 12, 13 years serving the security industry. I myself started actually at the University of Kansas in fundraising and have since joined up with my brother in providing custom solutions across the rural markets in Kansas and surrounding states.
Okay. So what we tend to do here also is get a view of sort of what the company offers, or what the business we're talking to offers for the industry at a 30,000 foot. So if you went down, say, a top 5 product listing that you offer as far as services and products, what would those be?
Well, we started with a mass messaging software that was written by my brother for actually my dad, who he was instrumental in helping finance our journey. And so in the beginning, we started with that mass messaging software for him. And then we've slowly added products over the last 11 years, including cameras and access control, and then intercom systems and air quality control devices, and just to name a few.
Great. Okay. So how does INA really get its start?
INA gets a start. It's all built on the model and the method that my grandfather and my dad passed on to my brother and I. You know, when we started this company, my brother and I had a handshake. It was, if I sell it, he'll build it. And we were taught how to sell through an old school method of drive, stop. We passed that along to our salesmen and salespeople today, that, you know, we hire you to be out in the public. We hire people to go door to door and still make phone calls and become parts of community. Our salesmen have territories and that they work on a daily basis, 4 or 5 days a week, with a certain number of stops that's put together by our staff. And through those stops, we have additional departments that then pick up from the stop to design and then installation, implementation, and sales.
So I think there's something that's really gratifying about working with a business who does that sort of handshake agreement for what a customer's needs are, and is someone that can deliver them in a set time frame determined by the project or by the customer. I guess what I'd like to get as an example for the audience is a couple of projects that you've worked on over years that you would say are highlights of what you've done.
Well, we've been fortunate. So we've grown 50% a year every year since 2014, essentially doubling every 2 years. And so our number of customers every year continues to grow. My brother and I, and our brother-in-law, Jordan, who is in charge of our operations department, we were sitting around having a conversation this morning about, projects that kind of got us started. And one of the projects was an access control project out in western Kansas. And it was the first one we did. One of the things that happened on that project was we learned what a modified block schedule is. And the big thing behind that is the number of changes and schedule changes over the course of a day that a school has to go through. Mm-hmm. So we went through, set the system up based on a standard typical school day that we were used to in our community. The system itself wasn't designed for the modified schedule. And so we worked with engineers, and we worked with the engineers of the access control company to actually make modifications and changes to the software aspect of the system, and we're able to meet the needs of the customer that way.
It's an interesting thing when you talk about schools, especially dependent upon district, dependent upon grade levels. There's all sorts of different variables and factors I'm sure you had to run into. Block scheduling is one that I've had to work with too before, and it is definitely a different way to look at the school day as it gets scheduled.
Well, absolutely, and you know as well as I do, in the smaller markets, you may have one building or one overreaching system, and the grade school maybe is connected to the middle school that's connected to the high school.
Yep.
And so every one of those classes, K through 12, needs something different, and then you get the outliers where we have an ag building or a shop class, and they have a completely different building, and that you can't restrict that flow and that access between the two buildings. And we've definitely seen those hurdles. And the great thing about technology is once you identify what you're going to sell and then who you're going to sell it to, the markets kind of open up, and a lot of the technology is transferable from schools and municipalities to healthcare and industrial plants. And so once you get the knowledge base, we really feel that we can create an ecosystem inside a community with like-minded equipment being able to be utilized by everybody there. Because, if you're on the school board, you may have a cousin or a wife that's on the hospital foundation board, and being able to have software and have technology that is what we would consider similar or the same across multiple industrial platforms and verticals makes the community stronger and safer.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's interesting when you talk about spanning the gap between the educational systems, schools, universities, et cetera, to say the healthcare market, where, a product that does messaging for so many different levels of a hospital group, whether it be floor nurses or whether it be doctors even, et cetera. I think that there's an interesting sort of cross-section of a community that could all have the same sort of connectivity to a messaging product, another alert on their phone that they're going to be able to get. And it's interesting that a customer could come to you and say, listen, we're a part of the local city government here that needs some sort of specific weather alert for residents that we want to offer. But we also have people in all these other markets that we want to look at too. And a company like yours could offer messaging to all of them, and those all could be specific, customized solutions.
Oh, absolutely. When we designed the messaging system, I should say my brother Nick, when he designed this system, it wasn't for one specific industrial use. The great thing about it is there's twofold, right? So there's your standard messaging that's like me and you sending a text back and forth. And most of the public has no problem using that. But where we kind of separate ourselves is the emergency notification side. So if you set this up in a community, whether it be through a weather alert or, God forbid something tragic happens and you need to get notification out to a large group of people, being able to send thousands of messages within seconds to an entire district or an entire community becomes paramount. We've been fortunate, and with the software, we have some larger, believe it or not, we have some larger fairs, county fairs and state fairs that use the service, and they use it for notifications, weather notifications, volunteer notifications, because there's a lot of volunteers on those, and they use our messaging system and our messaging software to communicate with their user groups. And being able, you are able through the software to break it up into user groups, and so you could have everything from an admin group to a custodial group. We try to really listen to our customers. So as things need to get adjusted or need to get added, we are able to pivot. Since we are a family-owned company, a lot of the changes and how-tos inside the company are made just over breakfast. And as crazy as that sounds, but we have a lot of conversations. My brother and I joke we talk to each other as much as we talk to our wives, and I think my call log is probably 80% him. It always comes down to communication, right? So communicating with each other, communicating within departments, and communicating to our customers. And if we're not communicating and having that flow of information coming from us and to us, we're really not doing our jobs, and we're really not making customers happy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I'm a firm believer that communication is the basis of every relationship we have, whether that be business or personal, etc. If you can't communicate with someone, you can't have a relationship with them, no matter what that is. And so that sort of dovetails into my next question, which is why is messaging and the speed of messages so important in the cross section of industry that you're working in?
It's one of those that the speed and the communication comes down to how important is it to the customer, right? So when you're using the product and software, the last thing that I want to hear happen is, well, I went to send this message and they didn't receive it, or they didn't receive it for a number of minutes or a number of hours. I know personal experience in just communicating with my children, right? So you get those text messages from them. Hey, Dad, I need this. And then, hey, Dad, I need this. Hey, Dad, I need this. Well, I had just, you just get the first one, and then all of a sudden there's 7. And kids and our society, even these days, is all about information. How fast can you gather information, right? And our customers expect nothing less. So being able to send messages and receive messages as quickly and as promptly as possible, that comes down to us and making sure we're doing our job.
It's interesting. Okay, so walk us through another example of a recent project, we'll say within the past couple of years, that maybe you felt like there were some unknown curveballs that were waiting for you, or for the customer, for that matter, and how you managed to forge a path through them.
Typically, when we encounter one of these projects, well, it comes down to what's behind the curtain kind of thing. So you go in, you do your best to outline a project, and the design team goes in and they pull together the engineers, and they really try to get down to what's needed. What it ends up happening is you get in and you peel back the ceiling tiles, and there's something there. One thing that we did, we had a project at a pretty good size hospital, and we learned real quick that the number of hours it takes to do hospitals is greater than going to a feedlot, so to speak, or going to a grain elevator. When you get into a hospital, our first one, you realize that what we call the air quality cart is what we called it. But essentially, anytime we move a ceiling tile, if it's in a patient room, or if it's in a room like that, you have to essentially quarantine off the area that you're working in. And so that just for dust purposes and keeping and mitigating the amount of exposure to anything that may be in the ceiling, or maybe in the wall that they're opening up. And that's really one of those scenarios that it being our first time, we were very fortunate that it was not the hospital's first time. So they were ready to go, and they were prepared, and they helped walk us through the situations and how to handle it. But it definitely made us better in the long run. But that was an interesting situation when you walk in and you have guys suited and booted in gowns and different type of scrubs, and just to make sure that the air quality isn't hindered or tampered with. So, we really try to make sure again, goes back to that communication when we're on location with our customer and meeting their expectation. In the event that we would have gone in and done it, the same way we'd done everything else in any other facility, we probably would have upset and hurt that relationship.
Sure. Absolutely. That's especially when it comes to clean rooms. Lots of attention has been paid with good reason in the past 3 or so years with the pandemic on how the medical system is actually structured here. And we have talked before on the show about being able to work within the medical community and offer solutions for them with Commend, but also through a lot of our partners and the people that we work with when it comes to staffing numbers, knowing how many people need to be available, knowing when to call in people, or when other solutions can be worked through. So I guess I would ask, do you feel like you have seen an uptick in the past 5 years in the medical work that you've done?
Yeah, I think it's technology and the product offerings that we have in general. But through the pandemic, we were busy. We were out and about. We were making sure that our employees were trained properly. We had all the tests. We had all the things that were necessary to operate during that time. But again, it was a learning moment for us and allowed us to become better and to develop better relationships with our customers and understanding what they expected when we came into facilities. Healthcare, we do a lot of hospitals, as you mentioned. We also do a lot of retirement communities and nursing homes. So they had their own set of regulations and rules that we had to follow. And then, we love Commend, and we use Commend in our correctional facility projects, especially just recently. And the correctional facilities had their own policies and procedures when it came to that. So just juggling all of that, and then setting that baseline of, hey, this is how we're going to operate when we go to facilities during this time. It made us stronger, it made us better, and it made us able to stress the importance of cleanliness, essentially, and making sure when we do a project, we do a job, we're leaving it better than we found it.
Yeah, it's so critical in our industry that we can not only bridge that gap of the solution or the challenge the customers put in place for us, but have them be able to turn back and say, we were right. We made the right choice. We partnered with a solution provider or a manufacturer who brought us to a better place. That's in my mind, it's one of the top 3 things that we do. So I guess I'd like to ask, when you're working with your customers, what are the things that they're seeing in the industry, or the questions they're asking, the compelling things that they need solved that you are maybe not yet be able to provide? I don't say that in a negative way, but what are the things that they're looking for as the next step for what you can offer?
I kind of chuckle when I talk to customers about this kind of thing. Been in the industry a long time, and there's a lot of things going on, and it's ever evolving, right? When we started, we still don't sell analog cameras, which was like an industry standard for years and years and years, decades almost. And now everything when we started was shifting to IP based camera systems. But in talking to customers, we get, especially in the early days, well, I saw it on TV that they did this. So the CSI, I love the can you enhance that image?
You bet.
Like they do on TV? And it's like, no, that's not a real thing, right? So juggling expectations. So we tell our salespeople that when they're talking to a customer, the first thing you ask them, do not say, hey, you need to buy this. It's talk to the customer, ask them, what are their issues? What are their pain points? Mm-hmm. What do they need help with? And then from there, we will design a system that targets the pain point, right? We're always looking for a primary focus when we talk to a customer. We got to focus in on something, because with our market and our push to be in communities of populations of 60,000 or fewer, there is, you have financial constraints. And so we have to be good providers and supporters, and knowing that money isn't limitless. So when we go in and we say, what are your priorities? Our first goal is to meet the priority And then anything else it does is an added benefit. Going everything from a camera system and an access control system that have artificial intelligence. What level does a community of similar to ours, Ellenwood, of 1,800 people? What do they really need with facial recognition? I mean, everybody already knows everybody's grandma, so you're able to get to the point and really drill down to, okay, maybe they just want to be able to have an appearance search, whether let it know that there is someone present, but not necessarily search off of facial features. And so those are the conversations that we're having. And there's some great software and great products out there right now that are getting into some next level identification, and whether it be through RFID tags, whether it be through biometric scans and different product lines. But at the end of the day, making sure that the customer's expectation of what they're purchasing is met, and not necessarily promising them or showing them the world when what they really need is just something to accomplish the goals of the smaller markets.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think that a lot of our integrators who might listen to this have dealt with customers who said, well, I want to be able to read the license plate on that car that's 150, 200 yards away. And what they've offered you is a fixed dome camera that sits out underneath an overhang on the front of their business. Well, you're not going to be able to do that, and they don't understand, which is reasonable because what they've seen is on television. So much of the security industry is shaped by what people assume that it can do.
Oh, absolutely. That the PTZ and the license plate reading it's one of my biggest gulps. You get into a customer, well, I want to read the license plate. Okay, well, do you want to read the license plate, or do you want to have security on the exterior building? Because those are two different things. They don't do the same thing.
Yes.
There are cameras that read license plates. So let's talk about those. Well, I really want to see if they're coming up and, looking in our windows or trying to get in the front door. Well, that's not the same camera. So we always tell people there's hundreds of cameras available, and that usually sets them back a little bit. And then you start showing them different product lines, and they had no idea. So a lot of what I do when I'm having conversations and a lot of our training for our salesmen is just education and how to educate the customers. Right. So because they don't live it on the day to day like we do. And so when we go in there and we say, hey, what do you want to see? Well, I want to see this and this. Okay. But how specific do you want that to be then? So I can get you that. And that usually just comes down to budget, as most things do. So, we had a school district that came in and they said that, hey, we want this, this, and this. We wanted to go to the 9s. So we gave them a quote for, I think it ended up being about $120,000. Not a giant project, but they definitely wanted a lot of bells and whistles in the small project that they had. They took that to the board. The board said, here's $40,000. What are you going to do with that? So then we go back and we revamp that and we talk to them and say, okay, now that you have a budget, we can now meet the expectation of that budget through the system we're going to design for you.
Yeah, that's so critical. I guess my go-to for most customers when it comes to bridging the gap between what they've seen on television or what they've seen in movies is understand that the movie you're seeing that the camera that was shot on is probably several $100,000. And also all of the additional equipment. So perhaps the budget you need to understand needs to expand if you want to be able to accomplish those things. But I think what's great about what INA offers is you're very much able to customize the solution for a customer's budget. And that's really important, especially in the industry that is always customers are always looking for the lowest common price point that they can pay for what they want. Understandably so, but I'm also of the mind that you get what you pay for. So I guess I would ask, in your customization, how do you feel like you match up pretty well in the industry for what others offer?
Oh, absolutely. We and Commend is no different than any of the other products that we offer. We stick around a certain quality threshold, so to speak, when we bring a product line in. And being that we are in such a rural market, and there's no shortage of rural markets across the U.S., we can't send somebody to Western Wyoming at the drop of a hat. So there has to be a certain threshold of quality when we do a system that we know, hey, we're putting this in, and this is our general expectation of how this equipment's going to last. And I would much rather give a customer or partner a piece of equipment that may cost a few $100s more, but I know, one, there's a 5-year warranty with it. 2, there's an expectation that once we have this established, outside of things that may happen, outside of things that are controllable in our realm, like weather and things like that, outside forces, this generally should last. And you shouldn't be calling us and telling us that something's damaged or something's not working. And so our customers have that expectation of us. And so we have extended our expectation of that to the manufacturers and the product suppliers. And it's served us well.
Okay. So I'll ask, as I always like to do on the Commend Journey, as sort of a final question of sorts. Jake, where do you see your portion of the industry in the next 5 years? If you were to look forward, what is the thing that you're seeing coming down the pipeline that you're going to have to be prepared for?
What I'm seeing is continued integration. So where we've kind of made our bread and butter is being able to integrate the components or the different product offerings that we have into a single use case, whether it be operating through an iPad or through a touch screen computer, bringing nurse call system, having it talk to the intercom system, having that talk to the doors. Where I see it going is just like a expansion of that. So where it's what we call a smart system, a smart home, a smart facility that they're operating their network connected HVAC is making decisions based on the time of day it is in the school and whether or not the doors are open, and minimizing the amount of user interaction when it comes to the use of these systems, because unfortunately the rural communities aren't getting larger at the moment. So the number of people in those communities that have the ability to operate, we're going to have to do more with less, right? So more integration, more usability, with less people having to use it.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Jake, I thank you for coming on the Commend Journey podcast. It's been great speaking with you. If folks want to get a hold of you, your brother, or INA in general, where would they do it? How would they get a hold of you?
The best way to follow our journey is actually through our social media. We are we have an extensive LinkedIn and Facebook following. If you want to call us, direct, we have our standard business line, but just reaching out to INA, sales@inaalert.com is kind of our general mailbox. Our website's inasecurity.com. And but our day-to-day, we post daily, whether it be on our projects, whether it be about our employees and different things that are going on in the company, 2 to 3 posts a day. We have an in-house marketing person that is phenomenal, extremely talented, and she posts daily, and she keeps us moving forward on the social front.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to seeing what comes of the next steps for you and for the company. And as always, we appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for having me, and we're excited to be part of your guys' journey.
Thank you.